Hello everyone, welcome to the Research in Personalized Healthcare Introduction Lecture. My name is Jan van der Brandt, and in the next 30 odd minutes I will be going over some of the core topics that you will see in this module. To provide personalized healthcare is one of the main strategic goals of the Radboud University Medical Center. And during the coming 10 weeks, you will see many examples of personalized healthcare in practice in a wide range of health problems and in diseases. And you will get many excellent opportunities to really get to know the research topics and the researchers working on them. In this lecture, I will be joining the several themes of personalized healthcare and the psycho-social and societal model for health and disease. These four dimensions shown on the screen are the four prevailing dimensions of personalized healthcare in relation to health and well-being. The first one, precision medicine, is what many of you will think about when you think about personalized healthcare. It is a solely biologic perspective. And the second one is one that's shared decision making, which is also very closely related to personalized healthcare, but not from a very technical point of view, but from a very patient-centric point of view. The third one is a newer concept of personalized healthcare that's about digital therapeutics and behavior medicine. This is very new, it's very up and coming, and you will definitely see more of it in the next 5 years. And what's important in all of these dimensions is that there's a transition going on from curative or reactive medicine into preventive medicine, in which personalized healthcare will play a core role, in my opinion. First, let's start with precision medicine from the biological perspective. The ultimate aim of precision medicine is to find the right treatment for the right patient at the right dose, at the right time, and with the expectation of better health at a lower cost. Precision medicine has been dubbed an emerging approach for the treatment of disease and the prevention of disease that takes into account individual variability in genes, environment, and lifestyle for each person. Ultimately, the goal of precision medicine is to unravel the mechanisms of disease that cause a disorder, so that it can be managed before irreversible damage occurs. Now let's take a look at an example of precision medicine in practice. This example is about radio-oncology. So there's a class of neuroendocrine tumors which arises because some cells in the neuroendocrine system proliferate out of control. Neuroendocrine tumors may be found in the pancreas, they may be found in the gastrointestinal system, in the thyroid organs or the parathyroid organs. These tumors are quite rare. In the Netherlands, yearly between 800 and 900 patients are diagnosed with these tumors. However, they have a somewhat poor prognosis if they are only detected in an advanced stage. Neuroendocrine tumors can be treated with what is being dubbed theranostic radiotherapy. Theranostic is a combination of a diagnostic and a therapeutic use of an intervention. In this case, the intervention is the somatostatin receptor analog and two different radioisotopes. So many neuroendocrine tumors express somatostatin receptors, and an artificial analog of somatostatin, octreotide, sorry for the pronunciation, it can be labeled with 68 gallium, which is a radioactive isotope that emits gamma rays. And these gamma rays can be detected with on a PET-CT, which is a positron emitted tomography, computerized tomography scan. On the right, you see a picture of what a PET scan will look like, and if it's combined with a CT scan, you will see a very clear picture, which not only shows where the tumor cells may be, or the metastases may be, but also the amount of activation and in a clear representation of the person's anatomy. If the tumor takes up a lot of this 68 gallium octreotate, it is likely to also be sensitive to radiation with another radioactive isotope, 177 lutetium. Lutetium is a beta particle emitting isotope, and whereas gamma rays travel several meters and can therefore be easily picked up with a scan, beta particles travel up to 1 centimeter in soft tissue, and it's a highly energetic radiation, which makes them particularly suited for precision radiotherapy. The radiotherapy causes DNA damage, and cancer cells are particularly susceptible to DNA damage for two reasons. They divide rapidly, which is when DNA damage causes issues, and secondly, their DNA repair mechanisms do not function very well in comparison to normal cells. If the DNA damage is very severe, a cell will go into cell cycle arrest or die. After the treatment with 177 lutetium, another imaging scan with gallium may be performed to monitor the tumor size and the location again. If the tumor size is shrinking, then the treatment is working. Such a way of using a diagnostic with the somatostatin analog and using a therapeutic with the somatostatin analog, this is something that you will encounter in the last module of Q8, which is called nanomedicine. This is a very biological way of using precision or targeted therapeutics. Now, this module is not just about the treatment and the personalized treatment, it's about the research in personalized medicine. So how do you develop these kinds of treatments? What kind of evidence do you need to develop these kinds of treatments? So as a scientist, your task will be to develop these treatments, such as precision radiotherapy, but also to evaluate whether these are effective. In traditional evidence-based medicine, which is shown here on the right, we would like to have large randomized controlled trials to show that the precision radiotherapy is effective in the treatment of neuroendocrine tumors. However, from the previous example, you can imagine that organizing such a trial would prove difficult. For one, the neuroendocrine tumors are rare. Only 800 to 900 people in the Netherlands are diagnosed with these. Therefore, large trials may not be feasible. Moreover, historically, one-size-fits-all approaches have been used to conduct successful randomized controlled trials. For example, this was the case with statins to reduce cardiovascular risk. Statins lower cholesterol by reducing its production in the liver. And this mechanism is relevant in a great number of people with a Western lifestyle. Thus, the control group of people with cardiovascular risk due to elevated cholesterol is quite homogeneous in that respect. So the treatment which is intended will be more or less relevant for everybody. However, as shown on the left, one can imagine that in the treatment of neuroendocrine tumors, there might be quite some heterogeneity with respect to the tumor somatostatin expression, which means that if a tumor does not express somatostatin or has a low expression, we would know beforehand that the targeted therapy would not work. If you make a one-size-fits-all approach, as shown on the right, people may be treated without any chance of success. The point is here that in the evaluation of precision medicine, or more generally personalized healthcare, other study designs than RCTs can and should contribute to collecting a body of evidence for treatment effectiveness. Going back to the theranostic example, we can imagine a series of studies that may contribute to evidence towards somatostatin therapy. For example, somatostatin as a tumor biomarker is identified by using, for instance, untargeted omics type analysis from a biobank, which is something that you will learn during the bioinformatics course. Next, the receptor's presence may be validated through experiments. These might be imaging approaches on human tissues or by using cell lines or, for instance, with animal studies. And third, an analog needs to be identified, for instance, also using bioinformatic approaches that predicts binding sites of proteins. And then fourth, the analog, along with the radioisotope for imaging, needs to be verified in a diagnostic and predictive study. So the question that we aim to answer here is, can imaging be used to differentiate somatostatin positive and negative tumors? Such diagnostic accuracy studies may have a cross-sectional design in which every patient undergoes all the tests, and the results are compared for sensitivity and specificity. Alternatively, a case control design may be used, mostly in the earlier stages of clinical biomarker validation, in order to check whether the analog differentiates between healthy people and diseased people at all. And only then, after all these steps have been taken, can radiotherapy be tried in patients with somatostatin positive tumors. In this very final stage, a randomized controlled trial may be of value if there's true equipoising of evidence. However, one should always bear in mind that the actual aim of having a control group is to know what would have happened had we not given the treatment. With neuroendocrine tumors, the average 5-year survival is about 85%. This is high enough to be uncertain that if the patient survived a radio treatment, would they have survived otherwise? In this case, a control group may be needed. What is important to take away from this is that all these studies and study designs have their place in the development of personalized healthcare solutions. There is no single approach that is always the best in any situation. This week, in the module Research Topics in Personalized Healthcare, we will dive deeper into the so-called biomarker discovery pipeline and see what study designs and what approaches are suited at each stage of discovery. Next, we will dive in a little bit more into the psychological perspective on personalized healthcare and personalized healthcare research through an example in shared decision-making. Shared decision-making is viewed as care that is respectful and responsive to the individual patient's preferences, needs, and values, and that ensures that patient values guide all clinical decisions. It doesn't become more personalized than this if you adjust to the patient's preferences, needs, and values, right? So while precision medicine is still a rather technocratic view of healthcare, where the patient is first and foremost an object of study, and by dealing with a biological abnormality, we deal with the disease and return health, there is more to healthcare than biology or fancy machine learning algorithms. There is, and there always will be, a human aspect, and this is the very reason that doctors will not be replaced by algorithms. And this is coming from someone who has made it its research goal to make accurate algorithms to aid doctors in making medical decisions. When faced with a sudden crisis in health, patients and their families are often left feeling in the dark about their problems and how they are being managed, and how to navigate the overwhelming array of diagnostic and treatment options available to them. In addition to the biological diagnosis, truly personalized healthcare requires that also the preferences of the patients and their families are diagnosed and determined. The goal of shared decision making, therefore, is to understand people, what their needs are and what their preferences are in relation to medical decision making. There may be alternatives that, if the patients are unaware and they cannot make decisions, trade-offs that may be worth to them. And such issues, they arise as inequality from information and dependency to the doctor, and ultimately a fear for a worse outcome, that make personalized medicine part of shared decision making. One important and commonly used model in personalized healthcare and shared decision making is the 3-talk model. It's been developed by Glyn Elwyn, who is a world-class leader on this subject. And what is important and also poorly understood is how to present information in such a way that people themselves can make unbiased and informed in judgment to the preferred option for them. So what we see here on the left is the model for deliberation or to achieve shared decision making. And what there always needs to start is a team talk, which means that you bring the patient on board of the health team. So basically what the doctor is saying, okay, we're in this together, we're going to help you come through this, but at the end of the day, we need to know your preferences. We need to know what matters most to you in your lives in order to be able to together choose the best treatment options for you. After which you start talking about treatment options. From the initial preferences, patients are receive information on several options for them, and based on this information they can construct informed preferences and talk about which treatment approach you take. And one of the things that helps construct these preferences are choice aids. And what you see on the right hand side is one of these choice aids, which is a option grid for breast cancer surgery. There are two basic approaches to breast cancer surgery. This is a lumpectomy, which is a partial resection of the breast where the tumor may be found, along with radiotherapy to make sure that if you miss any tumor cells, that these are irradiated and die. The second option is a radical mastectomy. So the first thing a patient may ask is which surgery is best for long-term survival. Turns out that there's really no difference in long-term survival between the two surgery options, which is sometimes surprising to people. An important second question that people ask is what are the chances of breast cancer coming back? And here you see that the breast cancer is more likely to come back after the partial lumpectomy or the partial resection of the breast, whereas if you do a radical mastectomy, the chances are much lower. So this kinds of information presented in this clear manner, that really helps people think about their preferences. Do I view that? Do I want to reduce the risk of cancer returning as much as possible, or do I feel that having a breast is important to me, or is it important to someone's perspective or as of being a woman, for instance? So this option talk, supported with decision aids such as this choice grid, requires that the researchers construct visualizations of the various options, along with the probabilities of benefit, harm, and the impact on various aspects of a patient's life. And despite overwhelming support from clinicians and patient advocacy groups, such tools are still very much in their infancy. An unbiased communication of the risks and benefits is, in a way that is understandable to all patients, is extremely hard to do. This may seem very simple to you students who are among the 10% of smartest people in the Netherlands, but you have to bear in mind that this needs to be understandable for everyone coming into the hospital. So this is not straightforward. And for those of you who are thinking about taking a communication profile, this will prove to be a very interesting and very important challenge in the coming years. Also, in a model about Alzheimer's disease in weeks 4 and 5 of this course, you will dive deeper into these psychological aspects and shared decision making and personalized healthcare, a very important topic. Next, I would like to talk to you a little bit more about digital therapeutics and behavior medicine. Here I have to give a little bit of disclosure. 1 day a week I work at a company that makes a digital therapeutic or digital behavior medicine intervention for people with chronic kidney disease. So I have some insider knowledge as to how this works and what's important if you are developing these digital therapeutics. So to set the stage a little bit, non-communicable diseases are a huge problem worldwide. So here on the left you see, for instance, the prevalence of obesity, which is in the middle you see the prevalence of hypertension, and on the right you see the prevalence of fasting glucose, or fasting blood glucose, which is elevated, which means that there's it's a prevalence of diabetes, really. And what you can immediately appreciate is that these health conditions sort of overlap. And what's also very important to notice that even in the poorest regions of the world, where problems such as child and maternal health, access to safe water and sanitation, and infectious diseases such as malaria, HIV, and TB pose a huge burden of society, These societies are also struck the hardest by these non-communicable diseases. They face the double burden of poverty and wealth-related disease. So these are big problems. Also in the Netherlands, these non-communicable diseases, or the risk factors thereof, are very prevalent. Close to 15% of all adults in the Netherlands are obese, and another 35% are overweight, which is 1 in 3 persons is overweight. A total of 1.2 million people in the Netherlands have diabetes, and the prevalence increases exponentially with age, from 1.5% in 35-year-olds to almost 25% in 75-year-olds. Now, bear in mind that also our population is aging, and the peak of the aging population will only we will only get there in 20 years from now, in 2040, when more than a third of our country will be over the age of 65. What's also important to know is that almost a quarter of the diabetes cases goes undetected. And likewise, 12% of the 35-year-olds in the Netherlands have a high blood pressure, compared to almost 70% of the 75-year-olds. And these problems are largely attributable to an unhealthy lifestyle. And this is where digital therapeutics comes in. So digital therapeutics or digital medicine are therapies or prevention programs as software applications that promote or restore health. These are believed to be especially important to address these great societal problems that cannot be managed by healthcare providers alone, because of 3 reasons. First of all, these software applications can be used by people in their everyday lives, from home, from work, or from any other place. Second, digital interventions, they scale very well. A doctor has only a limited amount of time and a limited number of people they can attend. So, given the overwhelming amount of people who have these health issues, we want the doctor to focus on those that may need the doctor's help the most. And software application does not have the limitations of a limited amount of time that you can spend on them. Third, research in behavior interventions shows time and again that a highly frequent interaction is needed in many domains at the same time in order to be successful. Just telling a person that they should lose weight once a year is not going to cut it. You will need to be there for them. You will need to give them feedback almost continuously in order to transform unhealthy behavior into healthy behavior. And this is something that is shown also by a very successful digital therapeutic in the US, which is called Omada Health. Omada Health has a diabetes prevention program, which is based off of the diabetes prevention program for the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. So this is all founded, the education program is really based on the best scientific insights on how to prevent diabetes and how to lose weight. In addition, they track the healthy behavior for people, for instance, by counting how much they move in a day. They offer calorie counting and digital scales, so that people, when they step onto the scale, it is automatically uploaded to the cloud, where people can be monitored whether they gain or lose weight. There are health coaches available which contact people if proactively, but also if people have questions. And they have organized online social support. And it turns out that you need all these things combined in order to achieve healthy behavior. Single interventions, they may be successful on the short term, but rarely do they result in lasting behavior change. And what's also interesting to note is that the director of the symphony is the data scientist or the health scientist who combines all this data and turns it into digital experiments. So for instance, as we discussed previously, randomized controlled trials are viewed as the most robust evidence for an intervention. This has been the stock of evidence-based medicine for decades now. However, these randomized controlled trials suffer from several issues. Generally, a large sample size is needed. They are labor-intensive to set up and conduct, and it takes a long time to get results. And often these randomized controlled trials are very strict in and exclusion criteria to reduce the heterogeneity, which in turn leads to poor generalizability. However, with the digital comes also the advantage of scale. As an illustration, the largest meta-analysis on a diabetes prevention program included 17,000 patients, whereas Omada Health has a cohort of over 60,000 patients. This means that subgroups for experiments and analysis are already available. And on the left, there's one of these experiments, where data scientists at Omada wanted to see if setting a personalized goal for the number of steps per day would impact the number of steps that people would track per week. And turns out that in males aged between 18 and 30, setting a personalized goal resulted in a higher number of steps tracked per day. In females, they did not see that effect. Even one might argue that it was slightly detrimental to set a personalized goal. And also in middle-aged people, having a personalized goal did not really matter, which gives you a very granular approach on how to aid or how to support people in trying to get to move more. So for young males, we should set personalized targets. For females and middle-aged people, we may not want to do this. Another experiment that they did is to request personalized feedback from coaches. So what they did is say that a person tracked a certain food item, such as a protein shake, for instance, for a number of times a week, and they'd shown a recent weight gain, then 50% of the users would be targeted by their health coach to provide feedback on the food item, and the control group would be left alone. For example, the healthcare professional or the health coach, they would ask questions about the nutrient content of the food item and what they liked about the food item. And then the weight loss between the two groups is compared afterwards. And what we see here is that the intervention group had a weight loss on average between 3.7 and 4.2%, whereas the control groups had a weight loss between 3.4 and 3.8%. And the result shows that there is a 99.6% probability that the additional feedback will help achieve a greater weight loss. Moreover, the scientists at Omada added user information to try and predict which people they should target for the coach feedback. As you can imagine, the coach's time is limited and you would want to ensure that it is well spent. Thus, they used a predictive model to identify which users to target, which are shown as the so-called persuadables, people who will only achieve the weight loss if they are targeted. Some people will never achieve this weight loss, so you don't target them. Some people will achieve this weight loss with regardless of the coach being there, and there's even some people that are called sleeping dogs, in whom a coach interfering would actually be counterproductive. So how to make these kinds of prediction models is beyond the scope of this course. However, in our master's program, we have a new course on prediction model and machine learning, which will be able to equip you with these kinds of skills. Incidentally, also the analyses on the weight loss have been performed using Bayesian statistics. And this is not only useful for this kinds of experiments, but also Bayesian statistics is very useful when there's limited amounts of data. For example, if you're dealing with a rare disease. And in the module on renal disorders later in this course, you will learn the basics of Bayesian analysis to analyze N-of-1 studies, for instance. So if you are into this, into these data science kind of topics, then for sure stick around, and you will be served well. So finally, to bring this all together, we're going to talk a little bit more about the societal perspective. So the idea that ultimately personalized healthcare is about prevention. So in the applications that we've seen thus far, and personalized healthcare intervention in general, have all one single aim in common: to have the right treatment at the right dose at the right time for every person, matching their individual needs and preferences in order to achieve better outcomes at lower costs. And these better outcomes at lower cost is what is crucial from the societal perspective. There's an old saying, a penny of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and this goes both for achieving better health outcomes and also for achieving lower costs. In that sense, the right time almost always means earlier in the disease course for many applications in personalized healthcare. However, at present, our healthcare system is mostly reactive. Physicians are paid to treat patients when they are already ill and not to prevent illness. Moreover, the therapies are used more or less in a trial and error fashion, as shown on the slide here, where patients are treated after the diagnosis. They are treated with a first-line therapy. If it gives side effects or doesn't work, they switch to another drug, and so on and so on. Make no mistake here, this is a rational approach that works on average. However, it is costly and time-consuming. More importantly, we only start treatment if the damage is done. And more, we as a society, as doctors and as scientists, are realizing that if we continue along this road, our healthcare system will be overburdened, especially with our aging population. In order to meet the needs of this growing population worldwide and this aging population in Western countries, we need to start keeping people out of hospitals. This means helping them live healthy and productive lives by stepping in before there's a health risk and before the health risk becomes a health problem. Right now, most scientists are working toward this kind of model of having efficient healthcare. So for instance, the example in theranostics, we can appreciate that tests such as the somatostatin positivity in the neuroendocrine tumors can help choosing the right drug in the first go, immediately for these patients. And in addition, the test with the gallium can be used to monitor the treatment's effectiveness and also to support patient counseling, showing that, okay, this treatment is working for you, it's not working for you, or you. We have other options, which would be your preferred options in the shared decision-making view. In addition, digital therapeutics and behavior medicine can help collect novel data outside of the hospitals that can also be used to monitor a treatment's effect and also the patient's health status and what risks they might run. However, while this is an important step towards truly efficient healthcare and personalized medicine, it is not the end zone. The ultimate aim is to identify who is at risk of poor health and intervene before they start going down that path of poor health and even disease. Think about it this way. When we are born, we are dealt a hand of cards, like a poker game. The truly lucky ones among us are dealt a protective hand. They get to live their lives productively and healthily no matter what they do. This is the quintessential grandfather who smoked, drank, and still lived to be 100. However, most of us have a so-so hand. We may be at risk of overweight. We may be at risk of diabetes, cardiovascular disease. However, if we can identify a bad hand in time, we can act accordingly and provide preventive interventions, such as the personalized prediabetes program. And finally, there are some people who are dealt a very bad hand. They are unlucky, and no matter how healthy they live their lives, they may still be diagnosed with cancer, for example. For these people, the targeted therapies will always be required. For these people also, the shared decision-making, along with the option grids, may also always be required. So, to summarize this video and what we've learned, I have attempted to marry the personalized healthcare research to the biopsychosocial model of health and disease and added a societal perspective. I gave 3 diverse examples of what personalized healthcare may look like. No matter what your field of expertise will be or the topic of your interest will be, you will be able to find your place in the path from discovery to personalized treatment. And my biggest hope is that you will be open-minded and receptive of the others working alongside you on this path, so that you as a scientist will not work in isolation, but you will actively work with others along this path in the benefit of humanity. So I'd like to thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions about this lecture, you can post them on the discussion board in Brightspace.